Did the Miami Police Department prevent the rise of one of the most prolific serial killers of a generation? Let's dive in and find out. I'm Lindsay, and this is Killer Bites, the show for bite-sized coverage of the juiciest true crime cases. We'll start out with a young boy named Jaime Gough. It's the middle of the semester at Southwood Middle School. Jaime hung out with two other kids, Andre Martin and Michael Hernandez. Almost every day, the three would meet before school by the teacher's parking lot to hang out until the bell rang for class at 8:50 a.m. Jaime, from what we could put together, seemed to admire his friends, especially Michael, the self-appointed leader of the group. Michael, an honor student and rebel, would regularly try to convince his friends to enter the building before school began. His schemes had gotten them in trouble with the school security on more than one occasion. But on February 3rd, 2004, the juvenile idea of sneaking into the school would be overshadowed by a more sinister accomplishment. Like any other morning, Jaime and Michael met up at the normal spot near the fences. Andre wasn't there this morning, and Michael didn't have the patience to wait. So he took Jaime and they made their way into the school through an unlocked door. The two of them entered the school and made their way to the upstairs boys' bathroom. Michael then convinced Jaime to follow him into the handicap stall. What Jaime walked into was no less than a nightmare. Michael told Jaime to turn around so he could get a surprise from his bag. Michael, soon after, donned a red hooded windbreaker, cap, and latex gloves. Now brandishing a knife, Michael approached Jaime, covering his mouth and placing the knife to his neck and eventually cutting open Jaime's throat. It would later be discovered that Michael had repeatedly stabbed Jaime's neck a little over 40 times. After Michael fleshed his gloves, shoved his jacket and cap back into his backpack, he washed his hands and left the restroom calmly. What Michael wasn't expecting was for a fellow student to enter the bathroom as he exited. The student noticed a pool of blood forming in the handicap stall and a body slumped over the toilet. Soon after, the student ran out of the restroom to find school security. Security didn't take the boy seriously and dismissed his rants about needing help in the restroom. What a great attendant, am I right? Anyway, the kid tells his friend about it soon after, and the two boys returned to the restroom to investigate further. When they got there, they opened the handicap stall and saw the aftermath of the crime. Jaime was left lying over the toilet in the stall, his head resting between the wall and the porcelain. The boys saw the blood all over the stalls and ran. They immediately rushed to security and told them everything they saw. The hysterics of the two caused the adults to follow and take their words seriously. Finally, how come the first security officer on duty didn't take the kid seriously? Was it just that he didn't believe the kid telling him, or was it something else? Either way, the guy didn't check when a student was obviously in distress. Security checked the stall and found the body, turning it over and exposing the wounds on his neck. Immediately after, he called over the radio for the Miami-Dade Police Department. The security officer then went to the administrative office to get the principal or assistant principal. It's hard to believe that the officer just left the body there unattended, but he did. And when he returned, the body had been moved to the center of the stall, off the toilet. He was placed on the floor, his arms spread to his sides and his wounds left out in the open. Now easier to see that his neck was slashed. In short, someone had moved Jaime from where the officer had left him. The school was immediately put on lockdown. No one was getting in or out. A few hours passed and the police investigating the incident entered into the classroom containing the 8th grader, Michael Hernandez. He had been recognized by one of the two original students who entered the bathroom in the morning. The police spoke with the teacher in the class first. She gave a few interesting pieces of information. First, she stated that she let students in at around 8:55, and since then, Michael had requested to go out to the restroom 3 times. He had made 2 trips before 9 a.m. During his 3rd trip, he was escorted by school security. She also let cops know that there were bloodstains on Michael's shirt. When she questioned him about it, Michael had stated that he was suffering from a nosebleed. Later, Michael was taken to an office in the school and questioned further by investigators. While there, he stated that he got a nosebleed from roughhousing with Jaime earlier, and he was hit in the face by a door. Upon further inspection, the detectives were unable to spot any open wounds or areas in his nose that could have explained the blood on his shirt. After their inspection, Michael must have gotten nervous because his story changed. His story was now one where he had been playing with Jaime in the second floor upstairs bathroom, where they had split up and went to class. He returned later, and as he had entered the restroom, there was already a suspicious student inside. Michael was unfamiliar with said student, but he had told Michael that someone was acting strange in one of the stalls. As the student said this, Michael's curiosity got the best of him. He bent down low to the floor and looked under the stalls to see who or what was there. When he bent down to look under, his shirt grazed the floor and, in turn, soaked up a bit of the blood pooling. He followed up by confirming that upon looking below, he had seen Jaime in the stall. That's when he left back to class. It's strange that a kid would see his friend in a stall with blood pooling and then just turn his back on it. He didn't think to call out or even check on his friend. What's even stranger is that he would tell officers he'd seen Jaime there. Based on the position of the body, he should have easily been able to tell that something was definitely wrong with his buddy. The cops must have taken that as a bad sign, right? At the end of questioning Michael, he agreed to let them search his bag. Inside, detectives found everything they needed to clear up the gaps in the story Michael had given them. Within were latex gloves with traces of blood on them, the red windbreaker, and the cap he had worn. Upon further inspection, the officers had noticed a small incision into the backpack's fabric. The fabric had been torn, which in turn created a secret pocket. In the pocket was the very knife used to kill the victim. As soon as the officers found the evidence, they asked Michael to come with them to the police station for an official investigation. Michael agreed. At this point, it seemed that Michael wanted to be caught. This whole incident kind of seemed suspicious and lacking planning. Could this kid really be the murderer? Why would he kill his friend? And what could have prompted such animosity? It's scary to think about where his head must have been during the crime. February 3rd, 2004, 1:40 p.m. Michael is transported to the Miami-Dade Homicide Bureau office under the suspicion of murder in the first degree. It's painfully obvious at this point that Michael was a part of this and is most likely the killer, but our only question is, why? As soon as Michael was in the office, he let his walls come down. Whether it be for fear, anxiety, or even excitement, Michael let loose and told the investigators the truth about his day. It was a wildly different story from the one he had mentioned. Michael was questioned without his parents present or in the presence of a lawyer. Florida state law in 2004 allowed for the questioning of a minor without the permission from the parents, which seems a little unethical. Good thing is, a parent can step in and stop the interrogation at any moment. The real question is, where were his parents? The interrogation started out okay. The detective was pretty friendly with Michael, calling him Mike and striking up the interview as if it was a normal conversation. They started out with a simple introduction and swearing him in. This actually might have swayed Michael to tell the truth since he was only 14 years old. Actually, his birthday was on the 2nd of February, just a day prior. So he had just turned 14. Michael and the detective continued their interrogation with Michael being cooperative and eerily present. His demeanor was strange as well, giving signs that he was more excited to be noticed for what he'd done. You might even say he seemed to be bragging about it. I don't think Michael really understood how much was at stake for him. I mean, this was murder in the first degree. As the questioning continues, Michael shows his respect for the officer and the system by sitting up straight, making eye contact, and just being a model student. He answered the basic questions first. You know, which school did you go to? What is your name? What kinds of classes are you enrolled in? Surprisingly enough, he was an honor roll student in advanced classes. Michael hadn't hesitated or shown the slightest sense of right and wrong in his interrogation until they mentioned Jaime. A simple question. Do you know Jaime Gough? And at the sound of his friend's name, he hesitated.
Do you know an individual by the name of Jaime or Jaime Gough?
Yes, I do.
It's a little strange that the detective asked really direct and leading questions. Usually, protocol is for detectives to ask really open questions that couldn't be construed as leading them to a specific desired response. I guess we can probably explain it by how young Michael was. Maybe the detective thought it could make him feel like he should lie. I'm not completely sure, but Michael was being cooperative and answered each question clearly. The detective pushed forward, maintaining the momentum of your average, everyday conversation. Where was he in the morning before school and why? Like most of us who got dropped off early, I'm sure they just hung out near the fences because the administration wouldn't let them inside. In the interrogation, surprisingly enough, Michael was calmly answering with uncanny accuracy of the times and location of when things took place. He noted the cardinal direction of his location in the parking lot and even knew the time he and Jaime arrived within 5 minutes of his arrival. His attitude when speaking with the detective was strange. Watching the interrogation, it would seem a little like he was speaking to a colleague, eagerly paying attention, attentive and even expressing excitement in talking to an official. They breeze through his whereabouts in the morning and move on to who was with him on the day of the incident. All of these questions may seem pointless at first, but they are necessary. The police were probing for any information Michael could give them that they didn't already know leading up to the incident. An example is when the officer asked how Jaime was in the morning. Did he seem off? If he did seem off, they would probably change their approach in the matter of Jaime's murder since the two were friends. The story might have changed to a mercy kill or any other number of circumstances. Because they are teens, it kind of makes motives and reasoning tricky. No offense to our younger viewers who probably shouldn't be watching something like this, but the instabilities of a mind in development can cause things like reason and common sense to become complicated. Most explanations for this stem from brain development, really. Since he was 14 at the time, physically, his brain may not have developed in the region of the brain controlling reasoning, decision-making, and impulse control. More specifically, there are two main areas of the brain that could have been the reason for how or who Michael was. The prefrontal cortex, located in the front of the brain, is my guess and the most likely cause for Michael's actions due to its connection with planning, decision-making, and impulse control. It doesn't stop developing until your mid-20s and only really starts developing significantly in adolescence, about 13 and 14. Second is the amygdala. It deals with the processing of fear and aggression. In its development, impulsivity and emotions begin to be altered, sometimes drastically. These are just a few areas in development that seem like plausible explanations or reasons behind some of Michael's motives. It's important to keep in mind that brain development is a complex and ongoing process that can be influenced by a variety of factors, including genetics, environment, and experience. Having him repeat the actions in the morning also helps to solidify his account of the events as well as give comparison with what the police had tried piecing together. Luckily, Michael seemed more than willing to be the center of attention, obviously thinking he was the smartest one in the room, loosening his lips and blinding him from the threat of being in deep trouble.
Who did you meet at the fence?
I met Jaime Gough.
And how did Jaime seem this morning?
He seemed like he normal how like he does every morning.
Did you make any suggestions to Jaime that you and him go into the school early this morning?
Yes, I did.
In the interrogation, we can see the officer asking if Michael had made any suggestions to Jaime to go inside the school early this morning. This type of question really doesn't sit right with me. The kid may be a murderer, but the question itself leads him to the desired answer. When Michael speaks, We can easily tell he thinks he is untouchable, intelligent, and just generally above others. You really think that the police didn't notice that? Of course, if Michael is in the group, we can assume he believes himself to be their leader and that anything they did would have to be his suggestion. Unaware, he walked right into their trap. Looking past this question, it was his idea to go inside the school and sneak into the second floor bathroom. These answers to the next question that followed chilled me to the bone.
Make the suggestion to Jamie to go inside the school today.
I was planning to murder him.
What? He answered so nonchalantly. I've heard people order a cheeseburger with more hesitation. His delivery was so cold. You wouldn't think he was talking about a friend of his. He showed no signs of remorse or any empathy toward the person whose life had just ended. It spawns questions of whether or not this child even understands what he'd done. He admitted to first-degree murder and probably didn't even realize it. The naivety of Michael in this situation is still no excuse for the crime he committed, but wow, he didn't even try to hide it. My mother would say he either had no fear or no sense. Since he freely admitted to murder, he is opening himself up to the highest level of punishment there is. At that time, first-degree murder in Florida had a steep price: death. Michael may have been unaware of this, or maybe he thought since he was underage, he would be spared. Unfortunately for him, Miami-Dade PD and the state of Florida take murder very seriously. For specific felonies involving anyone aged 14 and above, they can be tried as adults. For those wondering, this was one of the specific felonies. Not only that, but since the crime was so severe, he could also be convicted and sentenced to the same punishments as an adult, with the exception of the death penalty. By the way, the death penalty is still very much a thing in Florida. The funny part about this is the crime took place on the 3rd of February. Michael's 14th birthday was the 2nd. According to the law in Florida, if a child is 13 and they commit a serious felony, there must first be a hearing to determine whether the child should be tried as an adult. But at 14, the charges and the sentencing, whether it be as an adult or not, is basically left to the discretion of the state prosecutor. That means Michael would probably be recognized as an adult, barely missing the cutoff by a day. Now, it was just left to the court. What do you think? Should Michael have been tried as an adult? Do you think he was even aware of the consequences of his actions? From the interrogation and his demeanor, I really can't tell. What I do know is that he was definitely in the wrong. And the look in his eyes made me think this kid could possibly be a serial killer in the making. His motive seemed to be something straight out of a psychological thriller. He just wanted to see if he could do it. I mean, even if we wanted to know the exact reason why, he didn't even know.
Do you know why you were going to do this?
No, I don't.
Our next question, like the detective, was, what was the plan here? Was he just going to kill his friends in the middle of the school day and then just expect to leave and continue on normally? How did he see this playing out? Did he even have a plan?
Now, what was your plan? How were you going to accomplish this?
I was going to get him into the stall, the last stall, because it's the biggest, so I'd have more room.
Now, this isn't a restroom?
This is the restroom.
On which floor?
2nd floor.
Okay, and it's the male restroom?
Yes, it is.
Where is it near?
It is near the media center and the gifted U.S. history class.
Okay. And once you brought or got Jamie in there, how are you going to bring him or lure him into the restroom?
We usually go to the restroom after we get upstairs so we don't get caught by security.
Okay.
And so I knew that was gonna work. I got him into the stall by saying, look, I have something to show you. So I got him into the stall and I told him to turn around because I wanted it to be a surprise. Before that, I put on the gloves. He saw me put on the gloves and I said, oh,
you're going too fast.
And I said, I like them because they're comfortable.
Michael was going too fast for the stenographer, the lady in the room taking the notes. He was probably speeding up while getting excited, retelling the murder, reliving it with an audience. I mean, it had also only been a few hours since he had killed Jaime, so it was pretty fresh on his mind. So this may have been the best time to talk to him.
Now, you and him are already in the stall, correct?
Yes.
Did he go into the stall first?
Yes.
Did you follow him?
Yes, I did.
Did you close the stall door?
Yes, I did.
Now, what transpired next?
Okay. I was talking to him and I told him, all right, now I have to put my hand over your mouth.
Okay.
And so I did, and I lifted his neck up.
Now, was he facing you or was he away from you?
He was away from me.
Did you put your hand over his mouth?
Yes, I did.
And which hand did you use to put over his mouth?
My left hand.
Once you did that, what happened next?
I had already before I put my hand over his mouth, I already put my knife out. So the blade was already out.
Now, where had you kept this blade?
I had kept it in my jacket pocket.
And what color jacket did you have on today?
I had a red jacket.
Now, is this the same clothing that you're wearing?
The detective is asking a lot of simple questions semi-rapidly. This is most likely because he wants to fact check with evidence and Michael's account of the events. The detective asks questions with answers he already knows in order to fact check the situation with Michael. This may sound weird, but there are a lot of people who love the recognition that comes with committing a heinous act. That's why you'll sometimes get people who confess to unspeakable crimes in order to get attention. Now, there are other reasons people might take credit for a crime they didn't commit, like protecting a loved one and even wanting a lighter sentence if they know they're already caught. My guess is the detective recognized that this child may have an obsession with the macabre and wanted attention. So he decided to test him to see if he actually knew the details of the way Jaime died. Questions like this actually have a name: control questions.
What did you do next?
I took the knife out and I proceeded to slit his throat.
Now, do you remember in which direction you slit his throat?
Left to right.
Criminals, murderers, rapists, arsonists sometimes black out or suppress the memories of committing terrible acts harming other people. They do this to preserve themselves in their mind. It spares them guilt and allows for the continuation of their lives normally. One of the most notable murderers who did this was Jeffrey Dahmer. In his interrogation with police, he stated that he was in a trance-like state and couldn't remember some of the people he had killed. It is surprising to see then that Michael was lucid throughout the events. As the interrogation proceeds, he seems to be getting excited, enthusiastic, and even boastful. It's kind of like he is enjoying retelling the story. He's even able to recall specific details of the crime, like that he used his left hand to cover Jaime's mouth and slit his throat from left to right. It's not something you'd think a 14-year-old would say. Moreover, I don't think that's something anyone should say. It's chilling to think that Michael was in complete control when he slashed Jaime's throat. Details of the event get even more difficult to hear when you think of the fact that he was aware of each of the 42 stabs with the knife, as well as the moment he slit Jaime's throat.
Did Jaime say or do anything? Did he put up a struggle?
Yes, he did. He turned around after I did that. He asked me not to kill him. So I told him, okay, I'm not going to if you cooperate.
Okay.
Which was a lie.
Right.
And so I realized that the stall door was open, so I locked it.
Yes.
And then I turned him around again and proceeded to stab him.
And where did you stab him, Mike?
I'm not positively sure, but I'm guessing around the jugular vein right around here.
Okay.
That's what I was aiming for.
Did you stab him anywhere else on his body?
Just basically the back of the neck, all through the neck.
Okay.
And once in the temple, and I think I sliced him here.
And that would be on the left side of his face?
Yes, the left side of the face.
That's tough. Jaime was pleading for his life before he died, and Michael gave him false hope. The only thoughts I have are if Michael knew at all what he'd done. His gestures in the video suggest he stabbed around the neck, maybe trying to sever it partially. This is only speculation, but when he describes it, you can plainly see he is the type that might try something like that to sate his own curiosity. This 14-year-old boy was secretly a monster lying in wait. His demeanor and cold, matter-of-fact tone might even suggest a bit of dissociation in telling the details of when and where he stabbed Jaime. This is different from his previous attitude in the interrogation. It might even suggest the idea that since Jaime was in fact one of his best friends, he wanted to separate the two. Or maybe it could mean he decided to move forward past the relationship and the prior connection he had with the person aspect of Jaime.
Did Jamie fall to the commode or to the toilet?
No, he did not. He was already positioned where he was found. I put his head under there to stop him from gasping for air.
Okay.
So it would close it up.
Oh, I see. Okay, now. I'm sorry?
So he would stop making noise.
Okay.
Remember how we said Jaime was found before his body slumped over the toilet with his head pinned between it and the wall? Yeah, that was intentional. The way Michael described it, Jaime was gasping for air, so he positioned him on the toilet, neck bent over, to prevent him from making more noise. What Michael and Jaime probably weren't aware of at that time is bending the neck and applying that downward pressure could have prolonged his life. Sadly, it wasn't long enough for help to arrive. Michael described the moments after the murder just as calmly as before. Before fleshing his gloves, he checked for any signs of life, examining his face and his eyes. Then he took off, putting his red hoodie and cap in his bag as he left the room. Apparently, Michael had been spotted exiting the bathroom, running into other students as he left the downstairs restroom. We can only assume that walking to the downstairs bathroom was meant to try and establish an alibi for his whereabouts prior to class starting. According to Michael, everything had gone to plan. He performed the murder, got out with minimal recognition, and even got to clean off his hoodie in the downstairs restroom before anyone just came in. Just one hitch. When he put his hands back into his pocket, his ring was missing. Upon going back, Michael unwittingly ran into another student in the bathroom, noting there was someone slumped over in the stall.
I went to go look, having known what was there, and I saw my ring and picked it up and then left.
Okay. Had you gone up there actually to check to see if Jamie was okay?
No, I did not.
It was strictly to check on your ring?
My ring, yes.
This interaction is a prime clue in the interrogation, integral in determining where Michael is mentally. We can clearly see here that Michael values his possessions, his things, over other people, their lives included. He later states that there were people who would have been able to identify him and recognize that style of ring. Based on his values, it is very possible Michael could have become accustomed to Jaime's presence and seen their relationship to have been akin to a child and his plaything rather than friends. Jaime may have become a possession to Michael, helping determine where Michael's mental state was, giving us a clearer picture of his unknown motive.
Had you planned to do this to Jamie?
Yes, I did.
How long have you had this plan?
A little under a week.
And is there any specific reason why you planned this?
No, there's not.
There wasn't a reason for it. Michael had one day just decided he would plan the murder of his best friend. After his interrogation, Michael Hernandez was transported to a juvenile correction center. 4 years later, Michael pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity. In his trial, a crucial piece of evidence would arise: his journal. Not only did he plan to kill Jaime, but in his journal, there was a hit list detailing all of the names of the people whom he wanted to murder, including Andre Martin and his older sister. With the list, a mission statement, Michael wrote that he was determined to cleanse the planet by murdering others. There was no sympathy from any of the jurors. On September 4th, 2008, Michael Hernandez was found guilty of the murder of Jaime Gough in the first degree and the attempted murder of Andre Martin. The second charge came from the day prior to the incident. On his birthday, Michael had asked Andre to follow him into the bathroom, similar to how he would Jaime the following day. Sensing something was off, Andre declined the offer and resisted following him further. Jaime had volunteered to go, but Michael was determined and insisted Andre needed to be first. Michael stated that he asked his friends if they would cooperate with him the following day, and Andre said he would consider it. The following day, fortunately, Andre was a no-show. This event prompted this second charge. His sentence, life in prison without the possibility of parole for the murder of Jaime, and 30 years on top of that for the attempted murder charge. The imprisonment of this young man didn't change the fact that a life was taken. Michael took Jaime from his parents, family, and loved ones, and there is no way to make up for the loss they experienced. I'm sure his sentencing was not easy, but the damage he caused is indicative of the time he would later serve as his punishment. 8 years later, in 2016, Florida changed the laws regarding adolescent offenders, stating that it would be unlawful for the automatic sentencing of a minor to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. The law applied not only to future cases, but cases in Florida's past as well. Michael soon submitted an appeal. According to the Miami Herald, Michael was brought in for a resentencing hearing on June 21st, 2016. He gave an apology to the family and to Andre Martin for his actions, shedding tears as he pleaded for forgiveness from his friend. Andre replied coldly, "I do not accept the apology. I found it to be not genuine. I don't believe that he underwent any changes from that time to the time when the crime was committed. I believe that it is very easy to be apologetic and remorseful when your freedom is on the line." The defense in his resentencing argued that he had been diagnosed with a serious mental illness and that he had been neglected by his parents, contributing to his actions. Another of the arguments his defense made during his retrial brought up the Eighth Amendment right of Michael. They believed his right against cruel and unusual punishment was being infringed upon. The prosecution, however, disagreed, citing Michael as a sociopath who had carefully planned and executed the murder, thus justifying the sentencing and debunking his insanity plea. That same day, Michael was re-sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole by the judge presiding. The judge specifically cited the brutal and premeditated nature of the murder. At that time, he was 26. That's still extremely young. His life hadn't even started before he messed it up, spending the remainder of his days behind bars for a murder he couldn't even begin to justify. Our story doesn't end here. A mere 5 years later, after spending a total of 13 years in prison, Michael collapsed. April 21st, 2021, Michael Hernandez was pronounced dead. The cause? Cardiac dysrhythmia, an irregular heartbeat. The coroner had reported that the most likely cause of this was morbid obesity, leading to a clogged artery mixed with high blood pressure. He had died at age 31. Jaime's father soon gave a statement saying, "We were not expecting that at all. We don't want to see anyone die or hurt like that. Even though we went through what we went through, we were not happy to hear that Michael Hernandez was dead in jail." The case of Michael Hernandez was especially heinous and shockingly disturbing, especially with the interrogation footage. But there is a silver lining. Andre Martin, on August 17th, 2017, finished his training at the academy and became a law enforcement officer after realizing his calling in Michael's retrial. Jaime Gough continues to live on through his parents, friends, and loved ones, and also through their actions. What are your thoughts on this case? Do you think the punishment fits the crime? Were his rights really infringed upon? Was Michael actually too young to be tried in such a way? Is it possible that he could have actually been rehabilitated? And do you think Michael's death was related in any way to his sentencing? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. My name is Lindsay, and this was Killer Bites.